Hello, and welcome to the Sovereign Collective podcast, where we bring you real, raw truth for your self-empowerment. I'm your host, Sasha Calavoda, and I believe that you can stand on your own 2 feet, but that you don't have to do it alone. I love learning from people who continually strive to raise the bar, to go against mainstream thinking, and who dare to question the general consensus. People who risk being ridiculed or even risk the loss of their professional status as they bravely question the common narratives and challenge the rest of us to expand our minds and to reconsider what we think we already know. Join me in learning how to take control of your health and your mind so that you can have the energy to think more clearly and the confidence to step up and take responsibility for all aspects of your life. We promise to never censor here because I believe you are strong enough to hear the real, raw truth to make up your own mind. If you like what you find here at the Sovereign Collective podcast, then please share with your friends and family. And please also consider making a small donation on my Patreon page so that I can continue to bring you amazing content so that we can all create a better future. I so appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in. And now, on to the show. Hi all, Sasha here with 2 quick messages before we get on to today's show. First of all, if you are looking for quality supplements, tonic herbs, and specialty food items, then please check out Lotus Herbal Health in Calgary. You can find them online at lotusherbalhealth.ca or go talk to them in person where everybody is welcome and you'll get some great advice from some great people at Lotus Herbal Health. Also, secondly, parents-to-be, listen up. Our children are waiting for us to take back our parenting and consciously raise them, consciously conceive them, consciously birth them. There are so many things that we can learn about why we are the way we are. And the world is on a dangerous trajectory for the future of our children. And one of the most important and powerful ways that we can change that is to raise our children consciously, to be aware of what schooling does and what our words do and how we treat them when they're babies and how we sleep with them or not sleep with them and whether we breastfeed them or not or whether we hold them or not. There are so many things that go into forming who we are as adults. And it starts before conception, actually. So I've put together an amazing resource called your Conscious Pregnancy and Parenting Guide, where I have interviewed experts from around the world in the fields of nutrition and homeopathy and parenting and psychology and dentistry and many other fields. And if you are looking for a resource that is out of the box, that is going to help you understand why we are the way we are, then look no further than your Conscious Pregnancy and Parenting Guide. And you can find it at www.sovereigncollective.org/get-the-guide. I know you're going to love what you find there, so check it out. And now, on to our show. Hi, everyone. It's Sasha here with another interview for the Sovereign Collective podcast. And today I am delighted and blessed to be once again with Laura Uplinger, a pioneer and a force in the field of pre and perinatal psychology, and a woman who really brings to us and reminds us of the sacredness of conception and pregnancy and birthing and everything that makes the beginnings of a human being. It's beautiful. And I've had the honor to interview Laura before, not on my podcast, but not very long ago for my program, my online program, Your Conscious Pregnancy and Parenting Guide, where we get into the power of conception and the power of conscious conception and how that shapes an individual and who they are and how important that is for paying attention to that, for changing societies and creating a different person in this world. So I had the honor for that to do that interview. It's in my program that is not available on the podcast. It's something that you have to look at. I'll have the link on that down below for Your Conscious Pregnancy and Parenting Guide. And for now, at the recording of this interview, it's still at a ridiculous price of $47, but it won't be for much longer. So check it out if you're into anything around pregnancy and parenting and learning how our world and self-views are formed, then that is a program for you. It's quite amazing. I've been honored to interview some amazing people for that program. But now on to today's show. So today, Laura, if you want to learn about her website is wondersofthewomb.com. And like I said, she's a pioneer in the areas of pre and perinatal psychology. And we're going to be getting into a very tough topic today, a topic that I was on a very low level aware of just a year ago when we're now in February 2021. We've had the craziest year of our lives on this planet. And we're going to get into child trafficking today. It's a tough topic, and it's something that was brought to my attention at the beginning of this whole hoax, I want to call it. And I didn't know the depths to which this is occurring, how widespread it is, to what levels, these high levels of people in powerful positions, how they're participating in this, and how it's an industry. And I did not know. So, Laura, thank you so much for being here today and for helping educate us on this very, I feel like crying. I just got that tissue box case to cry. I feel like crying now before we even start talking on this. Oh, this is going to be interesting.
Dear Sasha,
Yes.
thank you for inviting me. And it's an honor to be here with you. And the theme is tough. And I wasn't aware either that it has been very normal traffic for so long. We're talking millennia and involving all the higher levels of society, from royalty to churches to industry. Um, I was aware, like most of your listeners and viewers, about Rosemary's Baby. And yes, satanic cults. Sometimes there would be a book of a teacher who was suspecting, like elementary teacher, suspecting that one of the children, their little girl, was having something strange. I remember reading all those things. For me, child abuse, child trafficking, and satanic cults were part of the disease of our human tissue, but I did not know it was a flourishing industry that brings more money than the drugs. After armament comes human trafficking. And recently there was this João de Deus, John of God, a healer here in Brazil, like the Filipino healers. He could do surgeries, open organs just with his hands and cure people amazingly.
Mhm.
And there was a town near Brasilia, our capital here in Brazil, that was dedicated to him, a town of prayer, Abadiana, and from all over the world would come people visiting him. He was arrested recently, 2 years ago, and on accusations of a huge trafficking network, human trafficking for porn, for everything, including a house where young women were kept prisoners and they would be sexual objects for the ones who had power in Brasilia. And out of these relationships would be born babies. And automatically, these babies were either used for organ harvesting or adoption, but also satanic cult. I mean, and that was big. The fact he's in prison, but the fact that he's talking and revealing the name of the normal ones who used to use this facility, let the authorities be more lenient as long as he can talk and help to understand the whole puzzle. Who is who? How come high power? And recently I saw, again in Brazil, a lady who is Damaris, who's in charge, the Ministry of Justice. She's an important lady there, and she gets calls day or night when something horrendous happens.
Mhm.
And the babies, age of 17 days, are being abused. I
Mhm.
mean, and this is it's something like rampant. And she had called her meeting like a bipartisan meeting. Let's forget about politics. Let's think about citizens who are days old. And of course, yes, the family will do it, but also the trafficking of these children. It was when I was with Sasha Stone in the International Tribunal for Natural Justice in Westminster. It was in, I think, April of 2018. Then I heard from many places on Earth, America, Europe, how big this network is.
Mhm. And who is so you're saying it's more lucrative than drugs. So who is paying for this? Where's the money coming from? Who makes the money on this?
It's the same people, apparently, that have the armament industry, the drug industry, the pharmaceutical industry. Those are the NGOs, by the way. When we think NGO, we think about breastfeeding, cute little moms, and
Mm.
trying to do an NGO about awareness and consciousness about breastfeeding. No, the pharmaceutical companies are NGOs. They dictate governmental measures. You will right now the vaccine is perfect example. They will tell the governments, don't look for a cure, look for a vaccine. Why? Why, if the vaccine would take normally so long to find and doesn't really work with the uh, RNA? I know one thing. This shows a void. You need to have a huge void in you if you're going to lack empathy to that point. Either when you traffic, when you have the money, or when you sell your baby. And this huge void, I don't know if you agree with me, is a lack of connection at the vertical. We have horizontal connections with people we meet, wonderful, and family members, but the connection with our essence, our higher self, since we were babies, that connection should be supported, should blossom, should be our real guide. You've met people who are really centered.
Mhm.
Well, these people don't need to go into any possible corruption in order to go up the ladder of a, I don't know, of an industry, of an establishment, of an enterprise. And that materialism has taken care of us. Now, there are statues and drawings of gods, Babylonian gods, eating little children, little bodies and babies being eaten. So I had no idea that cannibalism was fashionable. I heard recently a restaurant in Los Angeles was discovered. But some years ago, I heard that in China it was a real delicacy. In very important restaurants for very, very wealthy people, you could ask for human flesh.
No.
On the other hand, here in Brazil and Paraguay, Uruguay, we used to have the Guayakis. They were gorgeous Indians. They died of sadness, like so many Indians.
Mm.
And when you read the way they would bring up their children, you want to be a child with that kind of family. The principles of how they were brought up, and they were semi nomads. They would go back once in a while to the same territories. They had agriculture, but there were polygamy or polyandry, according in order to equilibrate, to balance the ratio of men and women. But when one baby was born out of the season or a wrong sex, something they were not expecting, they would cook the baby and eat it
It would cook
with
the baby.
hearts, with hearts and of palms. Yeah, almost the Pierre Clastre, a great anthropologist from France, almost gives you the recipe. He lived with them, learned their language, and when he starts his book, he says they do not exist anymore. So he saw the end. So he was able to still receive. So it has been with us, with the most lovely people. It's possible to eat. And they say that in Atlantis there were experiments, hybrid experiments, like the Minotaur or the centaur,
Mhm.
man and horse, and perhaps the pigs is some kind of human combination. I remember there was an airplane who crashed in the Andes, and until they were found, there were some days, some of the dead bodies ended up being eaten by the survivors, and they said, "Oh my goodness, this tastes like pork." And lo and behold, there are some porks you can have a transplant from a lung
Right.
of a pig, let's say.
Yes.
So, what are we? Who are we? See, this brings us back. And it's interesting to talk about this, not just the facts. And please follow Sasha Stone's um, um, podcasts and interviews about the International Tribunal for Natural Justice, the ITNJ, as he says,
Yeah.
because he created that in 2015 under the demand of some people who showed him the facts of all this human trafficking and child abuse. So this is extraordinary, and we're still learning much. But who are we, Sasha? What are we doing here on earth? What is this challenge to have a physical body? That sometimes we think we are the physical body, but let's remember we come from an essence that is energy. And that essence has an idea to spiritualize matter, to penetrate the brain and make it work towards life. And we have um, the two poles. We have this pull towards the noble, the dignified, the incredible, the sublime. And then we have this pull towards hell. How come we carry in us those two dimensions? I remember studying with my spiritual teacher in Europe. He was from Bulgaria. His name is Omram. And he says, it's very simple. If you only listen to your personality and not to your individuality, this is how he made a difference, you end up all divided. Individuality, it's indivisible. But here,
Oh, interesting. Ah,
and it's diabolic. You divide, and we're lost, and there is no ending. You always want more money, more power, more this and more, and it can take you towards these atrocities. We haven't established our connection very well in human civilization with the sublime. We have many religions, many religion wars, spirituality. Um, Even in India, with the caste system, even if they have such a great combination of gods and Urusvati and Sarasvati, we haven't established this communion, daily communion with our higher self in this body. I think we're getting on the brink of it. I think we're having more and more possibilities, but it's still a huge challenge. We prefer to go asleep.
absolutely. That's very apparent right now, isn't it? Very apparent. So, with your knowledge around the beginnings of a human being prior to conception, conception, gestation, what what are the things that need to happen for somebody to be okay with?
I love your question. Well, the first thing would to be invited. Were you invited when your parents were in love, just before they conceived you? Did they think, we should have a child? Just that, for the incoming soul, it's a certainty that my place is here. Not many of us were wanted or planned or invited. I don't like the word plan because it's not a matter of planning
Right.
exactly things
Yeah.
are going to be, but invite opening up. I mean, all these conceptions where the couple can be in that state of mind saying, is there someone ready to come? We're here, we're open. This is who we are. We are ready to offer ourselves for the next, I don't know, at least 18 years as far as bringing up, and then it's for the rest of your life. Sasha, it has never been done. It is in most of the traditions I have studied. I always say from the Andes to the Himalayas, there are so many traditions from Patagonia to North Pole where women are told that their imagination is all powerful during pregnancy. The traditions were there, but they were never applied. And the ruling classes, this is a big detrimental issue. Ruling classes, since the very beginning of our establishment with land and cattle and agriculture, then came the churches and the power, the men, patriarchy was born there. for very interesting reasons, they think. But there was matriarchy before that was even more cruel sometimes than patriarchy.
Oh, wow.
But since we know patriarchy, the written history, every time a woman with power, social economical power, would have a baby, she would have a wet nurse. She would not bring up that baby. She would not breastfeed her baby. The baby would never feel um, like he was worthy of her attention, of her presence. It is difficult to bring up a child. It brings us to our knees sometimes. But
Mm,
the joys are extraordinary also.
yeah.
And it came naturally to you, it came naturally to me. And around you, perhaps there were people leaving the children in daycare centers at the age of 6 months or 3 months. Did you?
No, my son's never even been to school. Never mind a
When you,
daycare.
when you say no, it came from it comes with your came with your breath.
Oh, yeah.
How come you have this entirety? This is the recipe we need for humanity. Let's be it for our moms. No, no way. So this is
Right.
extraordinary. This is what we need, more of that, and we can start building consciousness, conscious homes.
Right. So that's what I was going to say. So how do we change this path that we're on? That's what I'm trying to do is raise the awareness with it, but how do we get through to a population that seemingly does not want to know? I
Well, until the 1980s, science would refuse looking into that. They thought about genetics as the god of birth and the life in the womb. They call it genetic determinism, according to how which sperm and which egg would meet, the material they would exchange genetically would dictate all the development in the womb. And whatever the woman would do, yoga, singing, crime, whatever, drugs, would not affect the baby that much, or almost would not affect. I remember in France, they would say, no, you can drink and smoke. The placenta is protecting your baby from you. And now there's a big turnaround. Placenta doesn't protect the baby, protect against some bigger cells, yes, but the placenta is an organ of transfer. It's like a loudspeaker. If the woman drinks one little cup of coffee, the baby, if the baby is 20 times smaller, the baby drank like 20 times, 20 cups of coffee. But then came in the 90s the epigenetics. And that is extraordinary. This is our huge hope now that all this philosophical and gorgeous talk, even with transpersonal psychology, now it's validated by science. Yes, there are genetic factors, but the way the mother lives, the atmosphere she gives to her pregnancy, how she sees herself and life and the universe becomes food for the baby. And some genes are either put to sleep, either activated according to how the mother lives. So now we are able, and it, listen, this was found very well, the hypothesis Barker in the 90s, and many other cell biologists, even like Bruce Lipton. There were many things convening to, okay, it exists, but only from 2008, it has become officially, officially recognized.
wow, that's not that long.
So not that long because it takes time for people to say this is it. We think science as something extremely precise, but when it comes to human beings, we're always with empirical knowledge that is converted into statistics and this and that and science. But it is my great hope, Sasha, that because now we know it, little by little, we're going to be able to start anew the way we look at pregnant women I'm here in a place by the sea near the town of Sao Paulo in Brazil, where there's a center, one of the first ones in the world by public health officials. It's only dedicated to the well-being of pregnant women. Their yoga, their belly dancing, their groups of, it's not mommy and me, but it's a mommy and me with baby still in the womb, Reiki, magnetism, massage, their well-being from the mental to their joy. By the way, joy is a great factor for health. It's exactly the hormone that is opposite of the hormones of stress. So a person at any age in joy has more health. We know that intuitively, but it's so good to know that they can they can prove it scientifically. And the world needs more joy. And it's funny, we often want to help the poor. Of course, we need to help the poor. They're living under a bridge, they're homeless, and it's so rewarding to help those who are in misery or poverty. But this is not okay. We need to keep on helping them, perhaps, but help the very rich. These are the ones who put our civilization in danger. A very wealthy family might have a son or a daughter who later on will go to a very important university. But if that person did not blossom, sorry, in the vertical, as we were saying before, that person can be devising weapons of mass destruction. That, that person can feed the status quo. This person can just reproduce everything we see. And one day, without that inner strength, say yes to child abuse. I hear that Mel Gibson and some others from Hollywood spoke against their peers. This is a no. I mean, Hollywood is a huge industry. What do you tell a young actor? Oh, this is an industry that is into blood drinking? Oh no. It,
So let's talk about that blood drinking. So this is what I heard in the beginning when it's learning about Hollywood and adrenochrome and pedophiles and all this stuff. It's like, so what do you know about that? Because people are going to listen to it. When it's new to people, it is so beyond believable. You can't, so people just, I don't want to shut them off. Because that's at first I'd like when I first heard it from a friend, I'm like, whatever. What do you mean? Like what? And talk about all
yeah,
these big, huge
it's
names.
very hard to talk about those things because the only thing we can say, um, you and I, is that it will be proven soon. People will come forth and explain what happened and
Oh, I
confess
hope
what.
so.
In the meantime, we're considered weirdos. Now, adrenochrome is a substance produced by the adrenal glands when the person is in a state of huge stress and extreme terror. And if you're a baby, a little child, you're, the way you feel the stress and the terror is even higher. So the quality of the adrenochrome in your bloodstream will be better. And it's taken from the child by the vertebra here, the base of the head.
Oh.
The problem is not a drug that gives like a high, like a will make you understand something like an ayahuasca or an LSD, and then you go on living with that experience. It works, but it needs to be taken every day. It's the problem of the drugs of the family of adrenaline. When I went to the UN to a meeting of child abuse organized by the Vatican, it was 2017 at the UN, in the big CSW, Commission for the Status of Women. And I think they were their 63rd meeting, where you see women from all over the world, like about 8,000 women through the corridors of the UN and several little places near the UN, and over 450 NGOs. And there was a big meeting, the Vatican had organized that. The number that I heard was 500,000 children disappear every day in the US. There were social workers in New York that were associated with some of their uh, associations. And what? And now they say if you go on the internet, it's about 800,000. Sasha, some kids disappear. There is child trafficking, but 800,000. What are we talking about?
Yeah.
And might be exactly that. So they even have which child, what age, what race will produce a better terror over a huge stress and release in their bloodstream the better adrenochrome. It needs to be taken daily. Otherwise, like in those hocus pocus movies, the face goes back into its former. Because yes, it brings youth, it brings energy,
Okay.
it takes away wrinkles. It takes women don't like aging. What a pity. If we live
No.
well our young years, why not accept? It's we can be in good health, even being old, even the it's a little saggy, yes, but we can do so well. I'm over 65 and I'm loving it. It's very different, but
Yeah, we've been told that we can't get old, and so the women have bought that story and are doing everything they can. And I think again, they're not aligned this way than the vertical, and they just see the physical, and that's who they identify with. And who are they without their beauty, without their skin, without their plump lips, right? It's sad because you see somebody, what I see when I see somebody like that who's so overdone that way, I just see somebody who doesn't know who they are.
yeah. And we are pleasers. If we take this part of women, we somehow we have to please the system, the husband, the sister-in-law. We have to please. Sometimes fashion has very strict rules, and those who demand that women follow those rules are other women. Men are not so demanding. They
Mm.
just want to hug you. I don't know. I never followed much of a fashion. It was me. I mean, and I think I've been dressed in the same way since I'm 12, and which would drive my mother crazy. But Laura, how? Because she was a woman, a wife of a diplomat. She knew about fashion. She
Oh.
had to accept her daughter. Uh, I was clean. It's a mom. It's clean. But women, we're especially the Latin women, we're brought up to please. It's
Mm.
okay to please, but let's please heaven first, and let's be agreeable to our very highest ideals, and then see what we can do with our humans. We don't need to go with everybody, just do what the others are doing. It's not necessary because we'll never be tall enough. Everybody has those high heels. We'll never be, oh, this is never red enough. Yes, it's not red. I'm not 7 years old. I'm not 10. I've
Mhm.
seen kids having those lips. Oh my goodness, those colors. That's their color. And then we have to take all the hair from the pubic area like a little kid, the age of 7, 8. What's going on? We
Mm.
refuse constantly what nature is giving us. We have to pay attention. We have to compose. Yes, we can cut hair, take it, but let's be happy with who we are. And if it doesn't work so well this lifetime, let's work well so that in next lifetime we have the body we want. This is how I go long term. I don't have everything I would dream of. Okay, then every single part of our body corresponds to a feeling, a thought, a virtue, and something we've done in the past. And it's now in here as a result. If it weren't for reincarnation, that concept of reincarnation, I wouldn't be so interested in studying the divine. But if I come over and over and over, learning and then learning again, like Mozart came, he had already been a great musician. So at the age of 5, 6, he could compose and didn't need to ask anybody how to compose a symphony at the age of 12. So I would tell women, relax, be who you are, be the best of yourself. And next lifetime, you might be born in a better family, in better circumstances, in a better body. It's okay. But in the meantime, every day counts. And the beauty of your soul will speak through your eyes to everybody who knows how to see. Sometimes plants and animals and children see it first, but humans too. Plato used to say that the reason why we have education is to instill in everyone the love for beauty. Of course, we need the external beauty. Boy, the inner beauty is so much more important. Let's work on that one. The external one will be a consequence. And inner beauty and satanic cults don't coincide. See,
Aha.
this is if we can bring the love for beauty in the arts. In the arts, we came to a point where we love ugliness just to show that we have character. Come on, art is not here to describe reality. Reality, we can see it with our own eyes. We don't need an artist. Artists are here to take us to other levels, to inspire us, to fertilize our minds and hearts so that we can be our best. Where are these artists? And who is responsible for bringing monsters on earth? Women, because we're also responsible for bringing divinities on earth, saints, gorgeous philosophers and politicians. Nature has somehow relied on women during those months of pregnancy with their own flesh. They educate that newcomer because we depend on our body, we depend on our neurophysiology. I don't know if I mentioned in our podcast about prenatal, but Peter Nathaniel's interesting author, a teacher of Cornell University, in one of his first books on epigenetics, he says the health of a person at the age of 50 depends more on what he or she lived in the womb, how formation happened, than his habits of eating, sleeping, and exercising. And we know those three habits are so important for
Mm.
health. When you're 50, yes, but above that comes what we lived in the womb.
Right. So I have a couple things I want to bring up. First of all, going back to the pleaser and raising pleasers, and then you think about the predators out there and they're approaching. If you teach someone to be a pleaser, what happens when somebody comes in a predator and they're not connected with their guidance, emotional guidance system, and they don't want to say no because they don't want to displease. So a woman faced with, or a child or a teenager, faced with a predator, we're putting our children in dangerous situations when we're teaching them to just simply please.
Yes. How many books have you come across for children with great stories or songs about intuition? Because intuition will never shout. It doesn't, it whispers.
Mm,
So children can listen to that whispering. It whispers once sometimes, and then we don't pay attention because we want something else.
right,
And we go ahead, everything goes wrong.
right.
How come we don't worship intuition? How come our children don't see us meditating a little bit more? No, I'm not saying long moments, but a little place in the room where you go and quiet yourself. They even recommend that you have, even if it's just 1 square meter, 1 square yard, a place only dedicated to that, a time of connection in the morning, the evening, whenever, where you can, because even meditation would have a great reason is to remember what we came to do on earth. So many adults are not leading the lives they came for. They're not developing their qualities, their talents, their aptitudes, their gifts. This is our mandate here. It's not to fight, like sometimes religions would say, I'm not here to fight my downside. I'm here to live my gifts.
Yeah.
And it's an obligation. When I die, they won't look so much at what I did wrong. Sometimes it was part of a whole other network. But how did I develop my gifts? I'm a musician, I'm a great administrator. There's something I came here to excel into, at my level, but still to excel. How did I live that? I mean, there you would have a great recipe for human beings to be happy. Make everybody live what they came here to do. I don't know what would happen to our economics, but I am sure we would find solutions.
Mm-hmm.
And this is very recent. Social inclusion was never meant during all the centuries of aristocracy and things, since this new era, since Jesus, even before. I mean, injustice, the lack of social inclusion, abuse of power, they have been with us forever.
Forever.
So I'm very happy that we can now talk about those things. It becomes heard and known by many. There are books about that, and mindfulness becomes a fashion. I mean, well, I'm not into fashion, but mindfulness. Really, this is fantastic. Give me fashions like that, like altruism with all the social entrepreneurship. Didn't exist when I was young. We didn't have the word for that. There were people doing it, of course, but I went to in Oxford a big meeting of the Skull Foundation. They have their awards once a year in Oxford in the spring. And so you're in a room with 1,000 people of all ages, all of them crazy. All of them had done something with their lives that somebody said, no, it will never work. Yes, I want to bring glasses for everybody in Laos because I'm a French optometrist and I was there in vacation. I went back to Paris and Malala and all these extraordinary beings that dedicated their lives to an ideal against the approval of the status quo.
Mm-hmm.
It gave results. Several NGOs about girls, not brides, those who are trying to fight this constant underage marriage. Little girls of 10 marrying men of 70. We
Ugh.
can't condone that. Let them be girls, not brides. It's a gorgeous association. And you have so many. It's social entrepreneurship. That's a new chapter for humanity. It came with the second half of the 20th century. It's very recent.
So to come back to, so we have all these beautiful things going on. To come back to some of the darkness, what has to happen? So with your knowledge with conception and prenatal psychology and the womb experience and everything, what happens to create a sociopath, a psychopath, a criminal? Like what are the things that are creating these criminals, the criminal element, the people that don't have the empathy?
Well, lack of connection. You see, there's an extraordinary psychiatrist, and you won't hear me saying that very often. And he's American. Um, his last name is Perry, Bruce Perry. He is from Texas. He was one of the psychiatrists with the children of the Waco, Texas. Whoops, sorry, I have noises. Waco, Texas, where so many people died,
Yeah.
but some children had been released before. So they had been released. They were there with the enemy, that was the normal world, and they thought they were demons almost. They were under huge stress, and Bruce Perry was one of them, psychiatrists who was able to work with them. He wrote several books, but one of them is Born to Love. Our constitution is to be born to love. And he tells a story, very first story. It's a You can't put this book down once you start. Um, is the story of an 18-year-old quarterback, great, from Texas, already promised to one of the Ivy League universities, and really, and a great guy. Everybody loved him, and it's his birthday. He's his 18th birthday, and he invites everybody from his class. This is a suburb of a nice town in Texas. I don't remember which town. And there are two or three children in the neighborhood that had grown up with him now, and are teenagers also, that he also invites, including a girl. that was considered slow. She did not have the high intellect, the average intellect.
Mm-hmm.
And the party goes on very well. And then at one moment, he starts raping in the middle of others and inviting others to rape that girl that was
Oh my
slow.
goodness.
And I mean, it was not something even hidden. So came the police and he went to jail. He was 18. The mother had never worked, um, was one of these family that was wealthy enough. And they asked Bruce Perry to talk to the child and the mother. And he was really puzzled because all the details he had about bonding, about the connection, about what makes this empathy, um, the gift of empathy, is something that we should all have. Why was it so absent there?
Right.
It was monstrous what this boy had done. Until one day he heard the mother say, it was already, it was again another nanny. Another nanny? Oh, yeah, because, I did not know how to take care of a child. So I wanted a nanny to help me. And also, I have to sometimes play bridge and do some charity work. So I needed somebody at home. But every time I would come home and I would see that my child was smiling more towards that babysitter or that nanny than towards me, I knew my place as a mother and I would send this woman away. So that baby could never have one person to
Right.
bond.
No bonding.
No, no bonding, no attachments,
Yes.
which left the room for just nothingness. This is so difficult sometimes to understand that the natural way is a must. The child needs to be, when you said no, coming from your breath, that happened between you and your child. You were there for him, for real.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what every child deserves. And if it cannot be the mother, it will be one other person, but you need one um, caretaker so that we organize ourselves around that person. We are very flexible. A lot, we can endure a lot. But if every time I'm bonding with somebody, something happens and I don't bond, and it can be very bright and live in a castle, I will be a criminal of some sorts.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps just with armed trafficking. Perhaps I won't kill anybody, but I will make so many others being killed just because I want to have more money in my pocket.
Right. Oh, so we have what happens when, so through attachment style parenting, can we restore, what is the capacity to restore the bond or to heal that bond as we progress into life from preconception and beyond?
It's very easy to heal, but we need consciousness.
Okay.
It's so possible. It's so easy. Anytime we can start breast, first, it's a horrendous pregnancy, rejecting the child and all, and suddenly realizing at birth that, oh, this is what I meant to do, because it happens.
Right.
Breastfeeding, it's like when you have a second time to do some tests in university, you ask for your teacher, can I do another exam if I bring this and that from home? Or yes, just breastfeeding is still a moment when you can repattern, and but you need consciousness and love. And then later, very few can be done to the child because it will come as a just as a little thin layer. What will be expressed in the child is what comes from the essence. But then when the child grows up, then yes, he or she can do something. But again, with consciousness, sometimes therapy.
Mm-hmm.
But teachers, society, summer camps, schools can very little. They will be very limited because we are faithful to what we received in the womb. We recognize it as familiar. We think it's our identity. A violent pregnancy or a pregnancy spent just to please, and I'm exaggerating here, but almost like in a cartoon. I will, every time I please the other, renouncing me, myself, I'm being faithful to to what I learned in the womb. The womb is a school, used to say David
Mm.
Cameron, our first classroom. And we will implicitly remember, not an explicit memory, but it will remain with us and will dictate so many of our choices. So if we want to get out of it, I remember a T-shirt at APA, the Association for Pre and Perinatal Psychology. They say it's never too late to have a good birth. Like you can reimagine the whole thing and repattern and rebuild yourself. But this is an act of will, an act of inspiration, and it's not by chance and not something that the others can do unto you.
Yeah, that's
Sometimes,
that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no,
I was
no,
just
no.
going to say, I that's the work of Elena Tonetti Vladimirova, who does these birth into being birth shops, and I brought her here many years ago, where you go through a series of days of, but you basically reprogram your limbic imprint and do the and repattern your birth and your experience to create a
And
different
it's
reality.
possible. Yeah, there are many, including for those who are interested. I mean, Elena is extraordinary. I met her with APA, the Association for Prenatal and Perinatal Psychology and Health. They're extraordinary therapists. And for children who have been adopted from war um, countries, you have Michael Trout, and in cases as adoption, the Infant Parent Institute in Illinois. Wow, Detroit. He's an extraordinary human being. There are so many solutions, so many therapies available. But my life is dedicated so that it doesn't happen, so that we are already born with the best instrument and we don't need to long for so long um, for something, for more cohesion inside.
Yes. Yes. So what are some other reasons? Look, what do people look to when they don't know what to do? They see something in their own selves that they want to heal, or they see something in their child, or like for example, I know someone, she has two sons. One is younger, one is about my son's age, about she's about 10 or 11. My son's 12 today. But an older one has gone to his father in the States. And but she's very glad to be rid, like she loves him, but she says he's a sociopath. His father is a sociopath, and he is following in that footstep. Is that something you can undo? Like the sociopathic tendencies, the psychopathic tendencies, can you change those?
You cannot change that in someone, but that someone can change that in
You
himself
can.
or herself. Always, always.
Okay.
And even a horrendous life as a sociopath, the last 10 minutes of that life, suddenly understanding, that counts so much for the experience they will have on the other side and how they come back on earth. I have one thing I say to myself quite often, even these days. If cosmic intelligence let that happen, it will be for first I let to happen also. I mean, I cannot just go to war against every child abuser. A war would never solve anything.
Right.
But if cosmic intelligence accepts this, something can be done with it. And either for the person as an experience throughout so many lifetimes, and perhaps we have all been abused and abuser for a long time. I am often confronted here in Brazil to the slave. Brazil was one of the last countries who gave up slavery.
Oh, okay.
When you study a little bit those huge ships that would come, sailing ships that would come with the slaves to Brazil or even to the U.S., it would change the route of the sharks because somebody who would be sick would be thrown overboard. Somebody who would
Oh,
die was thrown overboard. and the sharks knew how to follow those boats. I mean,
Wow.
those were centuries that this was done. Um, I see here in Brazil, so much has happened. Even some slaves who found their own freedom escaping, they ended up having slaves of their own. We're talking about this network of human trafficking, and it's sex slaves, right? We also say that for those who are for the sex trafficking. It's good for us to know, even countries like Denmark and of course England, they were they needed their fortune with slaves working in the plantations, and there are extraordinary men and women who were against it. There was even a novel by a Canadian writer, The Book of Negroes, which is all based on true facts. And of course, it's a great, those historical novels. He
Hmm.
really is able to forget the name of the author, but The Book of Negroes is a real book that exists. And it's it's sobering when we look into who were we, all this trafficking, the route for opium, how opium was, even the Chinese were not that much into drugs, how much the people from the Western world made them be more dependent, how we use others so that they can be possessed, or I can command them. The misuse of power, we are obsessed with having power over others.
Yeah.
No, power is something we should have over ourselves. That's when power becomes interesting. How
Mm-hmm.
much power do I have over myself? In the small things and the big things, even in my gestures. And this is all the path of initiation, right? In the school of Pythagoras, this is what they would learn. They would spend 7 years in silence after having been admitted there.
7 years in silence?
7 years in silence.
Wow.
and
Whoa.
and bullied to make sure they really wanted initiation. And now we have those books, the autobiography of Yogananda is in every airport. Gosh, guys, read that.
Mm-hmm.
Drink that wisdom. It used to be such a treasure before, but now many people open boutiques for a little bit of meditation and they think they're doing spirituality. No, it's a life force, and and that is power. When you find a person who has power over himself or herself, that person comes into a room and ooh, people sense that person. It can be dressed in jeans. It's not a matter of social belonging, but soul belonging. That person has a higher connection with their higher self, and it's an example, and and we thrive just by being near a person like that. Feels good. Sometimes they're healers for dogs, for animals, sometimes they're healers for human, but their presence is healing. Why? Because they have achieved a state of being human that is more cohesive and, of course, more powerful. But they will never harm. That's the thing. These people would never harm anybody. They wouldn't harm a plant.
Mm-hmm. And that makes me think of that. It's like you're saying it's healing to be in their field because you're in their field, and it's a different resonant frequency. And it reminds me of how you had explained in our last interview about the sperm going to the egg and how it's not what we think it is. It's not a fight to get there. It's about resonating with which one at the time. And so it totally makes sense. You're in somebody who is they're just emitting a different energetic frequency.
Totally. And everything is about energy frequency. Everything. And I know that even stones can be cut with the laser ray as if they were butter. It's just to put every single entity of light exactly vibrating at the same,
Right.
in unison. Then it's powerful. Around me, those particles, those waves of light are totally normal. But if I find a way to put that in a laser beam, and we will use light and the force of cohesion, I can cut a stone as if it were butter. This is gorgeous. Those ideas, I like it. people say, no, you shouldn't do that. You're transposing from one field to the other. So I will transpose from the field of um, laser beams. And when a person is centered, it will have that force and will be able to see through life, through problems, with new solutions, with creativity. That's why these people are so fascinating, even when they're young, because they find different solutions. They become very different kinds of leaders, not a leader that leads by rules by the force, rules by the ingenuity.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I have to say, I feel that with you. I really feel your energy, even through this machine here. I can feel there's a calmness, there is a reverence for humanity and the spirit and the possibilities. And like, I'm getting emotional again. I don't even know why, but
Yeah, no, I think
the
you feel that,
future, you know?
yeah, we, we, we are what we think, right? So if you spend many years thinking things that are very inspiring to you, I'm still me, but the things that have been um, teaching me to be me are so extraordinary. This is why I just adored having met at the age of 22 this master Om Ram, because he was able to decipher for my mind. It was perfect. I was just finishing applied psychology, which was at the opposite, how to manipulate people with subliminal
Mm,
publicity, with tests of opinion. And I don't know, I had to divorce from that psychology, and I was distraught. And I found the esoteric psychology with that Om Ram, and he allowed me to see life differently and everything is a possibility. There was some inconveniences. I was finishing university at the Sorbonne in Paris, and here I am. I knew nothing about the gnomes or elves or angels or thoughts and devas and spiritual teachers and gurus. Nothing. I was like daycare center. Okay, you're finishing university. You're somebody. No, nobody.
right.
Oh my goodness, I don't even know who lives in the water. Who's there? Oh yeah, the Undines. Okay, so, but how come? And I don't see them because if I were clairvoyant, I would have navigated easily. But not being clairvoyant, I wanted to understand. But this is what great spiritual teachers are able to do. They're ambassadors from the world of heaven, helping us. And there are two currents. Some want the kingdom to come here, like Jesus has in the Lord's Prayer. May your kingdom come here on earth as it is in heaven. And that current is very powerful. Many other currents is like, let's get rid of this here. It's a valley of sorrows, and let me pay all my karma and check out. I
Mm,
have better things to do somewhere else. Okay, it's a possibility. But the order of Melchizedek, so many great masters also, they want to bring the kingdom here on earth. Whoa, then I have to be a temple myself. Oh my goodness, then where do I start? Start by daily life. How you sleep, how you eat, how you do the slightest things. And even if I'm still not extremely enlightened about all these subjects, I read some about them, but at least I could work on my being. And that brought me a beginning of peace. I haven't achieved peace yet, but it's a beginning. And I already can bask in that beginning. It's like when you have a ray of sunshine, you have a ray of sunshine.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you resonate with that because you have been on the same path. Perhaps intellectually you don't have all the names to give, but you have given up so many possible things in order to keep on your own way, to be truthful to yourself. And that's how you feel, and you are sensitive to this. And I love it because it's universal. We can be talking with a fisherman in Malaysia or with a great shaman in the Andes, it would be the same talk if the person is tuned. And motherhood also does that. In Pythagoras schools, there were no women.
There were no
And
women?
no,
No.
how come no women? And I remember Omram saying, they don't need it. No, no, if they want initiation, they can be mothers.
Oh.
And true for him, he didn't repeat that very often, but I heard him say, true initiation is when you dedicate yourself completely to a high ideal and you make the best of yourself into that daily task. Hey, it's called motherhood also.
Wow.
You are a different person now than when you were 13 years ago, right?
Absolutely.
You are
Absolutely.
much more yourself into yourself.
I'm probably a lot more dedicated to myself, to to
Yeah.
just my truth and being in
Sasha,
alignment.
do you find more you in you now than 13 years ago? There's more Sasha, more dimensions of Sasha right now in front of me than
Yeah.
if I met
Yeah.
you 13 years ago. And these 13 years, you've been pregnant and you've birthed and you had your baby.
Yes.
It gives you an idea of how more close you are to yourself, and then you're more attentive to others.
Yes. It's 100% true. Which is what blows my mind is that I don't see that as widespread. I see that I remember I had a friend who she went to the States for a while and there they have a much shorter maternity leave than we have here. And since then it's I think been but what she's when she went back to work, she said, well, everybody goes back to work after 3 months. Why wouldn't I? And I was so shocked by that comment. And I wasn't even a mother yet. And being a mother, I couldn't even imagine that. And I just don't see like it's such a massive drive within me that that mama bear warrior instinct that has been really awakened in this last year for the children of the world. But I don't understand, where are these mothers? Where is that connection to their own intuition as a mother to protect and to be there to advocate?
I think there are more and more of them. But right now, so many wounded women and men are being healed. There's so many therapies. At least they can recognize why they did not take the path of this kind of motherhood. Why so many women wanted to please their men who demanded they would be their wife before being the
Right.
mother of the children. So send it to boarding school, send it to the nannies. There are many like that, but there's healing happening. And I think you would be happy um, to know that many women found it on their own, sometimes almost by mistake. Oh, okay, you got a good promotion, so I can stay home a little bit more. And then the baby's 1 year old. Oh, no, come on. Let's do that. Let's have one car instead of two. And I don't want to miss the first words of our child. Sometimes it seems to come from the heart, but it's also from a deeper wisdom. And many children. Oh, the pandemic, the pandemic, as you call it. So
Mm,
many children had the gift of their parents. Kids could not be couldn't be taken to daycare centers, and they were there with mom and dad. For some of them, it was a huge victory. They did not need to be dropped, all dressed at 7 a.m. somewhere. Yeah,
hmm.
we are waking up, Sasha. Things are happening. Even your
Yes.
podcast is going to inspire some to listen to that voice inside. Why should I obey? The feminists um, have sometimes forgotten that it's great to work, but the state benefits from that. 2 income taxes per family. That's
Yes.
low. Perhaps if we recognize mother's work as work, perhaps we could even have a salary. Who tells me that taking care of a baby and a little one and even a teenager is not work? It's huge work. I remember some feminists in America saying, calculating everything a woman would have to pay for others to do their work, all the driving, all the cooking, all the homework, all
Yeah.
the outings. So if you have a professional for all of that, it was above $100,000 a year. This was at the end of the 1990s, which is very good. Over $100,000 a year.
Hmm.
Hello? Can we talk about that? Can we give value? Because it's so much easier to go back to the office
It is.
on your own enterprise than to be with a baby. But then you're going to have the rewards of those sometimes difficult moments during toddlerhood where all of your attention had to be there all the time. there comes a teenager who will be your friend because
Mm-hmm.
you and you breastfed him, and somehow he received from you enough so that he can be himself, and he'll blossom in that happiness.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. A lot of people don't realize that a lot of what they do in those early formative years are going to be expressed in the later years, right? We don't really know the results of what we're doing until later on.
But above all, if my mother has a center, if she's centered, I will have my center one day. Children should be like satellites, not the center of our lives. We have to take care of our of being centered. Women and men, but I'm talking women but now because of pregnancy, should never forget that relationship with the vertical. And even a daycare center can work if the woman has really that. The child will understand why she's working. It's not a choice sometimes.
Right.
But
Right.
if women could lead that way and have pregnancy with a vertical liaison with their own higher self, it would be ideal for humanity because we're made to work like that.
Yes. Yes. And so many things are distracting that connection, right? Just think of people sitting with the news on all day or their TV on, not even just the words coming out, but there's frequencies for sure coming out there and interrupting their own natural frequencies. And they're
Yes, and this habit that we have not to think, not to read, not to question. Sometimes you have one great teacher who tells you how to have critical thinking by taking you into great literature texts, and you see what the author went through to write that, and you give value. That's one way. But great teachers are hard to find.
yeah, I think even more so now. Yes. So circling now back around to the opening topic of child trafficking, what do you feel? How are we going to change this course? How do we save these children? What do we do? What,
Well, my my hope, and it's also a certainty, is when all of this is revealed from those tunnels and those horrible things. Tunnels were there since the Phoenicians. We're talking really many millennia back. This has been with us forever. We can put a stop on it. We've learned, this is my hope, we have learned what we needed to learn somehow, karmically or with it. Some children died immediately when they came to the air, to the light. And there's some hybrid experiments also. They used children in strange experiments. So the level of the horror is still going to increase. We're not going to have an easy um, 2021, but it will be exhilarating to see things finally coming to the surface so that we can make our choices because that will help people to wake up.
right. It has to get uglier before it gets better, I think, right?
Little, but we have to face the uglies because it's us also. What
Yeah.
the others are doing, I'm doing it. I'm part of everything. So I might be the Laura here working for pregnant women. I might, oh no, nothing to do with me, but it involves me. These are my brothers and sisters also. But no, they don't have a soul. Last time I checked, they had a soul. And perhaps they even came for us to wake up this time, one for good. And I'm very hopeful. And in the future, in the long term, on the other hand, um, child abuse has been with us. If you go to Google, child abuse is the most common abuse, not just by the parents or by adults, but look at Lord of the Flies, by even children. So, and by the brothers, the siblings. So let's name all that stuff and then see what can be done because we can turn back to our essence and bring much more light into the expression of who we are. But First World War, the second one, many revolutions. All that is man-made, because child trafficking, child abuse comes with a horrendous abuse of power. They call deep state, deep government, deep internet. I knew that most of the internet were used for pornography since its inception, but I didn't realize that there was a parallel world of a deep internet for child trafficking, for arms and drug trafficking. It's the same thing. And even the rulers of all that, they're still puppets. And this is now what is at stake. Lots of these false figures will come down. I don't know what happens on the other side. I would like to be a soul seeing what
Yeah.
happened on the other side.
Yes.
Can something be reused from these people? Did they come as with a mission? Are they just actors? Shakespeare used to say, "We're all actors. This is just a stage. Life is a stage."
Mm-hmm.
And,
Not the case.
yeah. So I am extremely hopeful that we will face the horror. It will be hidden for a little while more, but it comes with so many other things. All the economics. There is not one reason for people to be miserable on earth. Misery, poverty with dignity can be a choice. Misery, never. And
Mm-hmm.
it's wherever you look at, misery is man-made. So we talk about child trafficking, yes, but it's not something isolated. It comes with this whole scenario of we accepting to misuse our monies, our wealth. In the corridor of the General Assembly of the UN, it was when it was 2007. I was there just walking. I had to see some people, and I saw a big triangle, very big, like that. And I looked, it was a graphic from 2003 of every single money and penny the United Nations, like 102 nations, would give to the military and all kind of military enterprise, military service, armament, everything. And on the bottom, there was a gray area, like 22% of the triangle. And there was a legend written with that amount of money. We are in the UN, New York, General Assembly corridor. It was not um, conspiracy anything. It was
Right.
truly stated.
Yeah.
With that amount of money, we can have drinking water, food, housing, and schooling for every single inhabitant of the planet. So, what is lacking, Sasha? Goodwill. They have the know-how, they have the know why.
Yeah.
We're there in a we're not even talking about the black market stuff of armament. We're not the numbers there was before the war of Iraq, was, which started in 2003, but that was a graphic from 2003. So we
Right.
have everything in our hands. It's the
Absolutely.
goodwill now that can be put forward in science, in art, in education, in every field. Let's understand and let's bring our goodwill. We are going to heal these children, embrace them, help them die. But those who are coming on earth, let them start coming well.
Mm-hmm. So mothers, parents, conscious conception, conscious pregnancy, really doing that with awareness. But I think it's also important to realize that it's up to us, just the common people that aren't calling the shots, because it seemed that at the upper echelon of banking, politics, religion, entertainment, they're all partaking in this system, this corrupt,
All of them.
depraved system. And they are the ones that people are looking up to and listening to and allowing them to bring in their authority and tell them how close they can stand near someone, or how they have to school their children, or if they can
This
leave
is
their house or not. And we're listening
this
to
is
them. So
shocking.
it's up to us. It's not going to come from the top down, right? Because that's where the problem is.
It has to come from everybody, because I'm sure there are people, some of them at the top, who are not that corrupt. They can also understand some things, but Listen, Bayer, the pharmaceutical company, has bought Monsanto.
Yes.
Monsanto has all the glyphosates and everything. We pollute the earth with such an arrogance. We pollute the air. We have no right because
No.
it doesn't stop at children. It's the air and water. These elements are everything for us. Without water, without air, we die. And we despise them. So we are here to honor life, and and it will be done. And we have to be more and more people waking up, at least in our daily life. Some of us can be activists. Others will be into connection with their own self, because one Sasha on Earth makes the Earth more beautiful. You're there on the top there in Canada. Some people in Vietnam are right now benefiting from your willingness to spread the word.
Mm.
We're not just human beings right here. We're not limited by our physical body. We are energy, remember? So, so many around the world connect with the kind of work you're doing. So important. So important. You're bringing consciousness through media, through podcasts, through programs. Hello, this is life. It's about connecting and thinking. So you're doing your work, and others will be inspired to do theirs by hearing you.
Mm. And so speaking of work, so how are you spending most of your time these days? What are you involved in with your projects? Because you have done powerful, important work for a long time. So what are you up to these days?
I think I've never worked so much in my life. There's either an ebook being written, either a book for children, and I'm being consultant with so many extraordinary people. We are creating a prenatal alliance now. Yeah, prenatal alliance. It's about to be launched in less than a month from now. Something for everybody on earth who wants to discuss the stuff of prenatal
Mm.
can belong, and you'll be privy to that. And it's inventive, and when we have our meetings, it's 9 o'clock here in Brazil. It's 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock? No, even before. It's 5 o'clock in the morning in British Columbia, and it's 9 o'clock in the evening in Japan. And we have people from Turkey and Norway. There's a Portuguese lady. So we are trying to activate the maximum we can. Not things that can be found easily on the internet, but things that come from the wisdom from these women from China and India, just dynamite,
Wow.
and they are bringing forth the understanding that prenatal life, prenatal parenting matters, is one of our slogans. But we're starting. This is one of the gifts of the pandemic. Otherwise, here, I'm going to right now go to a center where pregnant women can come all day, and we have activities there. And we're starting to organize a little bit better, but already it's fascinating. A friend of mine, she wants to go to a great university in America. So she said, I need great extracurricular activities. So she comes from Sao Paulo. She brings her, she's 17, plays her flute for the harmony of pregnancy and uh,
Aw.
and helps them. She's doing plenty of work so that she can write about it. And um, she wants to be a doctor, a surgeon. And she says, I need to do something that nobody has ever done. So, well, here you are. You'll be my guest every time you come. Let's be together. So it's a I sometimes feel less than an ant doing little work. You know, the ants that take the little leaves and everything bigger than they are.
Yeah.
But I know that there's something bright that inspires me. Is this power of pregnant women is a delight and has never been tapped on. There's a resource that we have not used yet that goes beyond any reform in education or politics or economics. And I love those reforms. But let's do it the simple way, bringing on earth human beings who are friends with life. And then let's see what happens. Sasha Stoner once asked me, so what, how will the world be like that? I said, I don't know. I dream of it. It's amazing. Um, what will we do? Communication interspecies? Once we are in harmony, when we don't need good and evil to evolve so much, horrible ambivalences, when we truly can be fierce and embrace life, What will life be around the planet when this is for the majority? It will be very interesting. Lots of work, I'm sure, but the ambiance will be amazing.
Absolutely. I hope to see it one day.
I think you will.
You think I will? Oh,
You
well.
will see the onset, because this is what we're meant to do, to be to be healthy, to have brotherhood on earth, kinship with all life. This is healthy.
Yes. Yes. Well, thank you for doing the work that you do. I'm so glad that I came across your work and what you do. And oh, the women that are in contact with you, the pregnant mamas and everything you've done, they're so blessed to have that opportunity. It's just it's priceless. It's sacred. It's thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you. But it's also simple, remember? When I knew those things
Yes.
and I was pregnant myself, oh my goodness, it simplifies so much.
Doesn't it? Yes. Get
It's
rid of the
just,
gadgets, get rid of the everything that separates you from your baby. Just you just need you and baby and
oh, my daughter
awareness.
is now 32. What a joy. I mean, it's still a joy, it's a bigger joy, even. I mean, gosh, yes, guys, please do it. Just this, yeah, be yourself. That's the secret. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So Wonders with of the Womb. Is there any other website that I can direct people to right now, or that's
Right
not
now,
yet?
the prenatal alliance is not ready. The other ones are in Portuguese. Uh, it's called ANEP Brazil. I'll send you. I'll send you
Sure.
some stuff if you
Okay.
have Brazilian listeners. But soon you'll know about prenatal alliance, and we'll
Mm.
laugh together.
Oh, I'm excited to learn more about that. Okay, well, thank you. I really appreciate your conversation with me today. It's important, it's powerful, and I really honor it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and good celebrations for the birthday of your son today.
Oh, thank
The
you very
joy.
Thank you.
Bye, and all the best. Much love.